I'm Brandon Amoroso, and this is the D2Z Podcast, building and growing your business from a Gen Z perspective.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to D2Z, a podcast about using the Gen Z mindset to grow your business. I'm Gen Z entrepreneur Brandon Amoroso, founder and president of Retention as a Service agency, Electric, as well as the co-founder of Scaleless. And today I'm talking with Noam Szpiro, who's the co-founder and CEO at Monocle, which is an AI-powered incentive platform that generates profits for high-growth e-com brands. Thanks for coming on the show.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
So before we dive into the world of AI-powered incentives, can you give everybody a quick background on yourself and sort of your founding journey here?
Yeah, happy to. So I'm from Israel originally. Went to the Navy there a really long time ago. Then studied computer science in Cambridge in England. After that, decided to move to the Valley. Kind of worked on for a few startups there. Eventually started my own company in the ride-sharing industry. Thought it was a good idea at the time to compete with Uber and Lyft. Turns out it's not a very good idea. So about a year later or so, ended up getting acquired by Lyft. So joined the Lyft team there. Worked a little bit on a few different products there, but most of my time there was around passenger growth. And a lot of what we did there was around promotion optimizations, basically. So that's maybe where you can see the theme of the conversation and where we'll go. But at a high level, what we found at Lyft was promotions are super valuable for people, and if you're using it right, it's a great tool for growth. And so what we did initially was we said, hey, let's give everyone a coupon who hasn't taken a ride in the last few weeks. And let's see what happens. Ends up being super profitable. People come back when you give them discounts and take more rides. But eventually they stopped using the service. So what we really wanted to find out was, how do we target the right people to give them discounts? So not only the people who will just come back and use the coupon, but ones that will use the coupon and then stay on, and ones that will otherwise not use the service, basically. So really trying to dissect those people who are very promo sensitive and the ones that we can make them change their behavior, essentially. And so that's where we started investing a lot of effort into this, and we built a sophisticated system around machine learning that really uses what we call causal inference, so really investigating the cause and effect of promotions for different individuals, and then only targeting those people who have a very large effect, essentially. So you don't want to give a coupon to someone who will take a ride anyway and will use the coupon. You want to give it to people who are unlikely to take a ride unless you give them that coupon. And so when we started using causal inference, we saw massive gains, and we basically increased the ROI by about 50%. So with the same budget, we were able to get 50% more rides, essentially. So super successful. Ended up doing that same thing over for the driver side of the business. So thinking about it more generally around incentives and not necessarily promotions. So for drivers, we have similar stuff where we might give a bonus if they've taken 5 rides in a row, something like that. So use the same technology over there. After Lyft, ended up joining Instacart. So worked at Instacart for a few years. Was a director of engineering there, working on conversion optimizations, basket size optimization. So kind of similar stuff on a really large scale, essentially. And then about close to 2 years, almost, started Monocle. Raised a large seed round at the beginning of last year, and then kind of off to the races after that.
Got it. No, that's that's cool. That's something that was a thought in our mind at the agency for a while. When you're sending out all these campaigns and promotions, and they're sort of just one to many versus being one to one, and there's definitely a lot of brands that we've worked with in the past who would then become over reliant upon discounting and sort of hurting the the brand reputation along the way, and getting customers too comfortable with waiting for that code versus them shopping and if they had not gotten that code. So how did you sort of transition into the Shopify ecosystem from uh,
Yeah.
ride sharing and then into Instacart and then ecom?
Yeah, so I think in general, I think there's a lot of similarities between Lyft, Instacart, and generally the Shopify ecosystem. They're all about basically getting people to place that order, book that ride, essentially. So it's fairly similar in that sense. The difference is, it's a little bit of a different scale for a Lyft, Uber, all the ride sharing and services like that, and then Instacart as well. So for e-commerce, it's a little bit different.
Mhm.
It's the industry in Shopify is interesting because you can really get to massive scale with almost no team, or maybe a 10-person team. Sometimes you see brands do over 100 millions in sales, basically. And so obviously that would never happen for a startup like Lyft and Instacart, things like that. They would need much bigger teams. And so, when I was looking at that, I saw, okay, well, Uber, Lyft, all of those, they have massive teams around them that help them really figure out what is the right pricing, how do you do discounts, all of that. So lots of talent there around machine learning, data scientists, people like that. And for the Shopify ecosystem, it's really hard to do it yourself. Basically, you have to either hire a bunch of people, invest a lot of time, or you maybe have some tools out there today, but they're not very advanced in terms of that. And typically, the tools in Shopify, or a lot of the tools in Shopify, are basically tools. They're not really working on optimizations, or basically going beyond that, just providing tools, but actually implementing the solution essentially.
Mm.
So that's where I realized, okay, there's a little bit of a gap here where, with my background and the people I've worked with in the past, I think we can build something that could help tailor it for basically all the Shopify stores that are out there, and would save them the effort of actually building these things themselves. But at a high level, yeah, we looked at how people do promotions on Shopify, and you saw there were a lot of similarities. Like initially, they're just doing simple segmentation, like you mentioned, essentially, but saw that there's a lot of opportunities for improvements here, because it's mostly around maybe simple A/B tests, things like that, but nothing around personalizing discounts really all the way to the end, essentially.
Are you able to utilize the data from like multiple brands for, like, let's say one customer shops at like five of the companies that are using Monocle, and then you have a sixth company that starts using Monocle, and I go to that website and am also a customer of that? Is it possible to leverage the way that I respond and engage with the discounts from the other five to inform sort of the sixth, or is it more siloed, for that particular brand and that particular customer?
Yeah. So right now it is siloed. Basically, so each brand kind of, we look at them as a unique brand and figure out how do promotions work for them. And there's some. I agree that there's some notion around people being a little bit more price sensitive, and maybe some people just generally need coupons to purchase.
Hmm.
What we found is that it's not entirely true, basically. So the way people actually interact is more, it depends on the interaction with the actual brand, essentially. So there are some purchases that you just want to make that purchase, and you're not waiting for a coupon because you need this item, basically. And
Right.
it doesn't really matter like if you like receiving discounts or not. What really matters is, okay, how did you interact with the brand? How many times have you visited the site? And through that, we typically have a much stronger signal on how are you likely to purchase, basically, or how likely is it that a coupon will change your behavior, essentially. So we don't really do any cross store matching. What we do is try to understand what are the type of features. So for each user, we build some sort of profile, essentially, that's unique to the brand. But what we find is those features tend to be fairly similar between the brands. So, for example, one that we typically look at that's a very strong indicator is how long your session has been. So, if you have a really short session, promotion is unlikely to change your behavior. Basically, if you have a really long session, conversely, you might have already made up your mind, and a discount is not going to change that. Basically, so that's also not an ideal person to give a discount to. And the people in the middle that are kind of on the fence still, those are the type of people that you typically want to give discounts to. And so we find that is fairly similar between brands, but what is the definition of a short session or a long session is vastly different between brands. And that's why we don't have, right now at least, a model that basically looks at everything and decides for every user, let's do this, but rather for this specific brand, here's what it looks like, and here's how it might be best to represent these sessions, basically.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. On the side of actually building and growing the business, are there any sort of lessons or sort of gotchas that you took from the first business that you started that you kept in mind when going at it for a second round here?
Yeah, good question. I think two things. One is just the people you work with is super important. I think hiring like a right team is critical for the business. Finding a right co-founder is also super important. I personally, I know a lot of people tend to say, co-founders need to complement each other, make sure you have complementary skills. I don't necessarily agree with that statement. What I think is you need to find someone that you just like to work with, even if your skills are fairly similar. That's okay. The goal of having a co-founder is at least you can bounce ideas off each other, talk to them. Sometimes things don't go right, and your co-founder is the one that's helping you, maybe pulling you up or telling you, okay, here's maybe one other way we can look at this situation, or save this deal, or anything like that. So I think people you get along with and people it's fun to work with, I think, is more important than complementary skills. Basically, that's my opinion. And then it is fun to just make sure you have a good team that you're excited to go to work with. And then we tend to work in person, so it just the energy is different, and making sure you have those people who like that energy of bouncing ideas off each other, building things really quickly. I think that's super important. So that's in terms of people. I think the other thing that I learned over time is that before I started Monocle, I said, okay, I'm not going to start another business until I know, okay, this is a business that I know can explode, basically. And so before we hired anyone, before we wrote any line of code, basically we talked to, I want to say, like 50 brands or so, and kind of interviewed them around how they do promotions, all that stuff, different segments also in the e-commerce industry. And then right before we even had a product, we started doing some manual analysis for them. And then once we did that and we saw that they were excited by it, that's when I realized, okay, this is a good area to dive into and take this thing to the next level. So I do think, before jumping into things, making sure you're in the right industry with the right idea, basically.
Yeah, not building a ton and then launching it without having the initial customer discovery. And
Exactly.
No, that makes sense. Interesting on the co-founder note, though. I think people probably do prioritize some things beyond just like the basics. Like, do you actually even like this person, and having to go to work with them every day and having some sort of a camaraderie, whether you're complimentary or not, do you actually want to show up and be a partner with that person?
Yeah. And whoever you end up choosing, you're gonna it's not always gonna be easy. You're always gonna or you're inevitably going to argue about certain things. And I think the important thing is that you respect each other, and you can argue a little bit, but then after you have to take that to the next level, basically, and solve that argument, and build on top of that, rather than maybe not talk to each other then for the next few weeks, basically.
Yeah. How do you think about breaking into the ecosystem with a product that there's not a lot out there when it comes to what you're doing? Whereas if you had launched a reviews app, I don't know, in like 2019 or 2020, there's like hundreds of reviews apps that are out there, but brands are also more familiar with what that is. How have you gone about sort of the customer education, and then followed through with actually getting them to sign on?
Yeah. Good question. So in general, I really like there's a product market fit framework that Sequoia published a while back. So the way they think about it is they split it into three areas. There's the hair on fire, hard fact, and future vision. Hair on fire is kind of what you described as like the reviews app. So something everybody knows they need. It's a matter of building the best solution out there, essentially. Hard fact is basically what we're doing, where people don't know there's an alternative to the status quo, essentially. So the biggest competitor we have is just using what you're doing today and sticking with it. Basically, future vision is maybe building flying cars or things like that, essentially, or a store that markets itself or something along those lines. So with our area, our specific product market fit, the challenges are a little bit different. So it's not about talking to a customer and then convincing them, hey, like you should move off this platform and onto our platform, but rather when we talk to brands, it's about more education. So basically understanding, okay, how much money have you spent on promotions in the last year? Most brands don't really know, because in a way it doesn't really matter, because they just look at the bottom line, basically. And when you're thinking about promotion, sometimes you don't even see it in your P&L, basically, because it might just be the actual cost is baked into the actual discount is baked into that cost. So there's a little bit more education around that. So there's less competition for us. When we talk to brands, we have to tell them, hey, like there's a huge opportunity here, and we have to sell them, on the vision a little bit, that promotions can just be something that an AI can manage on its own and optimize and adapt over time to trends and seasonality, all of that stuff, basically. But the idea is that in this specific area, once you've done enough education in the market, then because there's no competition, you become a leader really easily. So right now we're I think in the beginning of people understanding, okay, there are a lot of AI tools out there, and brands are now looking to expand into that and figure out, okay, where should they add AI or machine learning into their store. And this is kind of one area that we see that brands kind of always think about, what are the different ways to innovate in that area, essentially. So it's interesting. The other thing I would say is that that we're doing that helps is basically we didn't want to get people to migrate onto our platform. So one thing we could have done, which was easy. So in general, when we think about promotions, we split it into a few different categories, but one category is basically the delivery mechanism. So how are you actually informing the user that they have a discount on their account? So that's the delivery mechanism. We decided not to touch that delivery mechanism because there's just so much competition there, and there's so many great tools out there, essentially, that do this. So for pop-ups, it might be Amped, it might be Klaviyo, Postscript. All of those brands, all of those products have great pop-ups, basically, and there's no reason why we should build another one that is more or less the same. But
Yeah.
rather, what we decided is we're just going to plug into those tools essentially, and then we're going to basically essentially be powering the pop up, or the brains behind the scenes that decides when is the right time to show a pop up, what should the discount be, all of that stuff basically. And the advantage there is that now when we are onboarding a new brand, we don't need them to offboard from Klaviyo onto us. They just keep the same UI elements that they have there, and then we just plug into that to really decide when and what to show basically to the user.
Got it. No, that makes a lot of sense, and probably makes the process significantly easier, not having to deal with migrating anybody off of anything. But there's a
Yeah,
lot of companies that are out there right now that are building product that already exists, but
yeah,
they're getting wider with sort of what their offering is. As it feels like a lot of businesses are rushing for that sort of platform play, sort of on the heels of, I think what Yapo did early on before anybody else started doing it was going for that sort of like HubSpot approach where there's a bunch of different products underneath sort of one platform. What are your thoughts around going that route versus being a very specific sort of Swiss Army knife for a particular use case, and which is effectively, I guess, what you guys are doing with when it comes to like the pricing
yeah.
optimization? Because I don't think it works all the time, because you can't do that with like reviews, because reviews have now been commoditized. So
Mhm.
how do you think about that?
Yeah. Yeah, so I think when you're starting a company, in my opinion, the best way to get it off the ground is to be that Swiss Army knife, or not exactly the Swiss Army knife, but really finding that one specific pain point and really solving that really well, basically. And that's a really great way in, where you're talking about a pain point that brands have, you're solving it, they're coming to you for that specific thing. And then ultimately, you want to expand and then provide more solutions to other pain points in that same specific area. I think Yotpo is a great example of a lot of different products in different categories. So reviews is a little bit different than sending emails, for example, or sending
Yeah.
SMS. But it makes sense to expand into that, because that's another area product that brands really want. For us, I don't like we'll never expand into reviews, for example. But for us, expanding into different areas that have promotions in them is very natural for us, for example. So right now, we typically control, I want to say, with some brands, about 50% of the promotional spend.
Mhm.
So that's through, pop-ups, emails, on-site, deciding when people should receive discounts. Basically, we sometimes trigger when a user should be receive a discount in a win-back campaign, things like that. And that all accounts for about 50% of the promotions. We want to also tackle the other 50%. So that a lot of times is through strike throughs. So just items that are on sale, for example, or bundle offers, things like that. So those are areas that we haven't gotten into, and that's kind of the area that we want to expand to. I know once you have control over all the promotional spend, that's where there are great interaction effects where, if this item is on sale and someone has it on their cart, maybe you can give them an even larger discount, for example. Or maybe there's a bundle offer for 3 items, the user has 2 of them. Maybe you can give them an additional discount and tell them, hey, like add this item and get this additional offer. But once everything is connected, it's much easier to play around with it. So, for example, Black Friday is coming up. Right now, it's a little tricky to get to a point where everything is synced. So a lot of brands just decide to shut down their emails and maybe turn on something new. The idea is with Monocle in the future, you're just going to be able to say, well, I just want to give 40% off for everyone. And then you'll do it from one platform and we'll update everything. So all of your email marketing platforms, all of the pop-ups, everything on the site, basically, so you don't need to go and manage everything independently, essentially.
Got it. Well, that makes sense. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time and coming on. I think it's a huge need, and it makes a ton of sense. So definitely a lot of value that e-com brands can get out of their customers. And I think everything's moving towards that, one-to-one personalization versus the general segmentation and whatnot.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, can you let everybody know where they can find you guys online and how they can connect with you if they want to learn more?
Yeah, sure. So our site is usemonocle.com. There's a book demo link there. Feel free to fill it out, and we'll reach out.
Awesome. Well, again, I really appreciate you taking the time. For everybody listening, as always, this is Brandon Amoroso. You can find me at brandonamoroso.com or scaleless.ai. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Brandon.